How confident are you that all schools in the UW system will survive this crisis?
Well, I think if we don't act, we're facing at this point, it seems, very difficult choices, and the challenges ahead require that we act in a very aggressive and quick manner. And that's what we're attempting to do. The threats to these institutions, I think, are great in the long term if we don't act quickly.
And I was reading that the chancellor at UW-Milwaukee said that the losses will put the campus in peril. Just kind of paint the picture for how drastic this could be.
Well, there's a number of conditions that we're attempting to do to prevent that threat and to confront it quickly. And that's why I'm aggressively putting this blueprint in front of the board. And that blueprint attempts to, at point one, and the first part of that is to find ways to reduce the duplication of programs around the system. And that's through the refinement of their missions and to share some programs through technology, but to reduce them. Secondly, to consolidate the operations on each campus that we refer to as administrative functional operations, such as HR, IT, and purchasing as well, those kinds of things. Each campus is staffed to do a lot of that. We should be consolidating that so we don't duplicate those efforts at every campus. And thirdly, we're trying to be more strategic in the way we offer online programs. The online programs we have now are dispersed and decentralized, and our goal is to not duplicate those as well, but to improve their marketing and outreach while unifying them under a strategic plan.
So you're talking about things like furloughs, layoffs, cuts to classes. The Board of Regents will eventually take up this plan. How much money are you really trying to make up?
Well, we really don't know. Furthermore, we don't know how much money we're going to be short. The challenges are, the future is really relatively unknown, as you probably realize, as it relates to fall, as it relates to next spring, what will happen, what choices will students make. We are doing everything we can. We will be open in the fall. The question is, what modality will we be delivering our educational experience in next fall? And that's what we're working on, how to do that, how best to do it. And that's why this blueprint is important. In order for us to survive this, and in fact, to thrive, to prepare for a future that's going to be quite different, we need to consolidate our services. We need to refine and become more distinctive in our institutional missions. And we need to have a much more unified strategic plan in order to provide online distance experiences.
Part of the consolidation, as I understand it, includes cutting some classes. What would that look like?
Well, the process of program prioritization and evaluation will occur. Obviously, over the next month, the board will be seeking, I suspect, input from folks in this process to determine, well, what do you think of these 3 points? What alternatives do you have? And then the board will act. If they choose to adopt this blueprint, then the faculty and staff around these campuses and communities will be engaged in the process of trying to evaluate this through an objective model that is well known throughout higher education. How do you refine your mission? How do you make choices about priorities? How do you evaluate programs and services?
I know you're well aware that health experts are concerned about another spike of coronavirus in the fall. So what are you preparing for? What do you think your campuses will look like at that time?
Well, we'll be open. The question is, how will we deliver all of our programs, and how will we do that in a way that provides safety, and obviously for our faculty first, as well as our students. And with that, those are things that we have teams studying that. The Plan Ahead movement is focused on a bunch of different scenarios. We have created a strategy around 5 different themes. How do we test? How do we trace or track? How do we isolate? How do we separate? And how do we protect? Those are the 5 pieces that we're carefully looking at. And of course, engaging faculty and staff and how to accomplish some of those so people feel safe and yet we provide a high quality education. That's something everyone is working on in different aspects of that effort.
When do you plan to have a decision by in terms of if students will be taking classes in person in the fall?
Well, tentatively, we've set the middle of July to make definitive statements. But I can say now that there will be face-to-face classes on campuses. How many, how large, and to what extent is yet to be determined. So there will be, right now I can say definitively that there will be some face-to-face classes. That's going to happen. The question, how extensive will that be? How well can we prepare to make sure our faculty and staff are safe, as well as our students? All of those things are yet to be determined, and we have a number of groups working on that.
Could you tell us some things you're considering in terms of maybe different class sizes or schedules or different types of semesters?
There are some really creative ideas that are being explored. One of those ideas, which speaks to the resurgence issue you mentioned earlier, should there be a resurgence, most folks are projecting that would happen in the fall. We're looking at, could we condense or compress or accelerate, not sure about the right word, fall semester, so that if we started on time and we held classes on Saturdays and at other times, and complete the whole semester by the middle of November, might we avoid a resurgence? And that's just an example. You asked for an example, Adrienne. That's an example of some of the things we're exploring.
And as a parent or a student, how do you rationalize paying for college when you have no idea what that will look like?
Well, first of all, what we're attempting to do is provide a high-quality experience, and we're doing that, obviously, in an effort to make sure we can provide that. We received money from a donor just recently to improve the quality of our online work for traditional students, that is, students that are normally on our campus as residential students. So we will be setting up programs this summer to make sure that if we do hybrid coursework on campus, and I think we will, whatever we provide in an online format is a high-quality experience, complemented, of course, by traditional face-to-face. In reality, there is no replacement for a true face-to-face experience. However, we're trying to do a lot of things that we can leverage technology for to actually enhance and improve that experience. And our commitment is to provide the highest quality of education possible, regardless of how it's delivered.
And students won't have to submit ACT or SAT scores for the next 2 academic school years at all of the schools except for UW-Madison. So I'm curious, how does that affect your admissions process?
The admissions process is a holistic admissions process right now. And of course, the standardized test, the ACT or the SAT, is a part of that. It's one piece of that. That tool is typically used to reflect academic readiness for college. What we do know is that high school grades also do that, I think, and research has shown that they actually do that better. So hopefully our campuses will be using a multitude of tools in order to determine academic readiness during this difficult time. The reason we're doing it for students is to accommodate them. Many of them could not or were not able to take this test. Furthermore, the stress that it puts on them to retake a test to try to improve their score, we were trying to alleviate, and we believe we've done that to try to take the stress off from the student. They have enough as it is.
President Cross, so much to think about for higher education during this time of coronavirus. Thank you.
Thank you.